Victoria's opposition has revealed it may redirect contracted work away from the Suburban Rail Loop towards other transport projects if it wins the November state election. While the Liberals had already promised to shelve the first stage of the 90-kilometre rail line in favour of health spending, they're now ramping up their opposition to the build by suggesting they may stop works already underway. Julia Bradley has this exclusive story.
In August, the Victorian opposition announced that should it win the upcoming state election, it'll shelve the first stage of the government's multi-billion-dollar Suburban Rail Loop and inject the savings into fixing the health system.
That's the choice. That's November, and that's what this election's about.
Promising at the time to honour any early works contracts the government had already signed in relation to the project.
We won't rip up those contracts.
And while the coalition maintain it won't terminate existing contracts, Shadow Transport Infrastructure Minister Matt Bark has revealed to Sky News he'd be open to amending them after consultation with figures in the construction industry.
It's possible that groups who have already been contracted may come forward to say, look, there are other infrastructure priorities, for example, that are backed by Infrastructure Victoria, unlike the so-called Suburban Rail Loop, and that they may wish to have terms in contracts altered. Now, if that's the case, well then of course I would have those discussions.
It's a significant shift in the party's position. Matt Bark says there have been discussions with industry about how to ensure early works don't go to waste if the project doesn't go ahead under a new government. If current contracts can be amended, he says entities may wish to pivot to provide works that can be utilised for new projects such as a light rail. The concept of a light rail has been backed by the Rail Futures Institute.
It's been put to me by 2 or 3 figures in the industry that may well be the wish of entities that have signed contracts already.
$2.3 billion has been allocated in the state budget for early works, which includes things like moving utilities, protecting underground services, ground improvements and road modifications.
The broad idea of some better linkages between the spokes in Melbourne's hub and spoke rail model is something that I support.
The Suburban Rail Loop was a 2018 election promise by Premier Daniel Andrews as part of his Big Build agenda. But Victoria's anti-corruption watchdog has indicated that Big Build program will be among the projects it'll investigate over the next 12 months as it probes the possible improper influence of lobbyists and donors. The government initially forecast the first 2 sections of the loop, the East and the North link, could cost
in the tens of billions, potentially up to $50 billion.
Independent analysis from the Parliamentary Budget Office now suggests it could cost closer to triple that amount.
Every single cent we can claw back from this project, we will. In the process, we'll honour the contracts that have been signed for early works. There aren't many of them. And in the context of the massive cost for the overall project, they're not worth a huge amount of money either.
A government spokesperson says while the Liberals make their minds up, we're getting on with building Suburban Rail Loop and will continue to work closely with the community and local councils to deliver its benefits. Expressions of interest for 2 tunnelling packages opened earlier this year, but the government maintains major contracts won't be signed until 2023. Julia Bradley, Sky News, Melbourne.